Can you believe it's December? Welcome back to my knitting podcast. My name is Hannah, and if you watched my last video, I talked about how I wanted to get better at posting more regularly, and all of a sudden it's mid-December and oh my gosh, what happened? Like, I just can't believe everything moved so fast. So I am back with some project updates. It has been a little bit, even though it doesn't feel like it's been that long. So I want to get right into it. The first thing that I want to talk about is a finished object that I don't have because it was a gift. So I talked about the baby blanket that I was knitting for my brother and sister-in-law who are having their first baby in February, and I wanted to make them a blanket. And I also kind of wanted to try and use yarn out of my stash. I found the label. Well, there's actually another label. I'll explain that in a moment, but I have the label for it. It is Lion Brand Mandala, I don't know this word, and it is from their baby yarn. The color that I used is called Acre Woods, and it is this ombre here, and it's just got a lot of cute sort of pastel toned colors. They're not finding out the gender, and so I wanted something that was just multicolored and could be whatever. And then I was a little worried because I only had one skein of it, so I thought maybe it wouldn't be enough to make a blanket. So I also used another yarn that I had. You can't really see the label because I got it on clearance like 3 years ago, thinking I would do something with it, and I just have never really had a good project. But it's K&C brand Knit and Crochet. It's a Joann brand of yarn. It's called Confection. I don't know that they even sell this anymore because it was already on clearance when I bought it. It's essentially this like puffy textural stitch. It's really, really soft, and so I thought it'd be good for a baby blanket. I had 3 50-gram skeins to begin with, and I have one full skein I did not use, and there's like 13 grams of this left. I can't remember, I did weigh it, but over a skein and a half I was able to use from my stash, so that was exciting. But I essentially just kind of mixed that in between the colors because the way that this skein is broke up, the colors change and it kind of makes sort of stripy sections, which here's a couple pictures of it done so you can actually see what it looks like. Now, if you watched my last podcast, I was actually pretty irritated about this project because if you look at what the colors are supposed to look like, obviously, again, it's this like kind of ombre fade, and in my skein, I got to like orange and it just automatically switched to blue, which you can't really see how it's supposed to switch, but it's supposed to go to orange to yellow and then back to this like light blue, and there was a knot in it and it just switched right from orange to blue. And the rest of the skein is this really lovely shift in color. It looks really nice, and so I was so frustrated because it just switched colors right in the middle. Ugh, I was really irritated. I tried to just go forward and knit. Again, if you watched my last podcast, you'd see that I made a little bit of progress because there was like this much orange. So it was like this super skinny little stripe, and then I did my white stripe, and then I had been working on the blue a little bit, and I just hated it. I thought it looked terrible. And so I thought, I can't do this. I can't gift something that I don't even think looks good. So I went to Walmart and I went to my local Joann's because I know that they sell this yarn. I didn't know if they'd have this exact color, but I have seen it there before, and they did not. And so I was kind of like, well, maybe that's a sign I should just use what I have. Like, I don't know. Well, I looked online at joanns.com and they actually had it on clearance and free shipping. So it was only like $5 and some change to buy another skein, which I did, which is kind of a bummer because I was trying to use stuff up. So it's kind of messy because I had to use like partial parts of both skeins. So I had to like completely rewind. This is the new one that I bought, but I needed to start with orange, which was like in the middle of this one. So I had to rewind until I got to the orange. So I didn't touch any of this. This is like 70 grams, I think, and it starts out with 150. And then I used all the colors that I needed, and then this was my original skein, and I did go back and use some more of the blue at the very end, but not a lot. So I still have this much left, meaning that I only used like 50 grams of this yarn technically. Like my net loss, so to speak, from the stash is not very much because I had to add some back in. So that was kind of frustrating. I'm really glad that I did it because it looked so much better. Like it looked like the actual fade it was supposed to be. And I think it turned out really cute. And the baby shower was the last weekend, so I have already given it away. I did actually get it done in a decent amount of time. A lot of times with gift knits, I feel like I'm knitting till the end, but I got it done like a week and a half ahead of time and was able to wash it and block it. I did procrastinate weaving in the ends until like the day before, but I got it done and wrapped and ready to go, and I think they really like it. It's one of those things that whenever I gift a knit, I just, in the back of my mind, I'm like, they hate it. Like, I don't know why, but I think they liked it. They said they did, so if they don't, they lied. So I don't know. I think they liked it though. But I do really like how it turned out, and hopefully it's something they can use. I don't know. I don't have a kid, so I would assume that it's useful. So that is my finished object for this video that I don't have to show you. So I do have some current projects that I've made actually quite a bit of progress on, so I'm pretty excited about that. The first one that I will talk about is one that I wanted to talk about in the last episode, but I couldn't find it because I had just moved. And it is one of my summer projects. It is a tank top that I've been working on. It's a self-drafted pattern. I had already had, this is the front side of it done. I am just doing an all over lace knit stitch, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like flower buds, but I kind of think it looks like little leaves, and I just really liked that motif. So yeah, this is the front side. It's totally finished and blocked. It is a seamed garment, so I'll have to sew it together eventually, but it is made out of 100% linen yarn. It is from Darn Good Yarn. It's their, I think, recycled linen. Again, I don't know that they sell this because this was like a yarn deep in my stash that I bought a few years ago that I wanted to finally use, and I didn't get this done over the summer, so I'm still working on it. The progress that I want to talk about that I actually am pretty excited to share because it's quite a bit is on the back side. Now this looks a lot lumpier because it hasn't been blocked yet, but I have gotten this much done, which if you watched like 3 podcast episodes ago when I was last able to talk about it, that's where I was at. So I'm pretty happy with that because I'm using a 3.5mm needle, so it's pretty slow progress, and I actually feel like I've gotten quite a bit done. I actually have just done the little decrease for like the underarm area, so I'm just kind of going up the shoulder section now, and then I'm done. Each of these skeins of yarn is 50 grams. It is their sport weight linen 2-ply, and this is in burgundy cherry, and I just started skein number 4. Well, maybe I didn't just start because it looks quite a bit smaller. I'm into skein number 4. I don't know that I'll start skein number 5, so I might have this left over, but yeah, right now I'm like going on about, I'll probably hit like 200 grams worth of the yarn. So that feels pretty good to use up something in stash. I don't know that this will get done anytime soon. Every once in a while I have picked it up and felt like really invigorated to work on it because I'm not that far from being done, and it is so exciting to get a project done. And it's kind of been a little bit since I've gotten projects for me done, and so I'm itching to have one finished, but because it's cold outside now, I don't really have the ambition to work on it like I had. Just, it's something that's different and can be a fun knit to pick up. The only thing is, this linen yarn is just kind of rough on the hands. I have noticed that my fingers get really dry after I'm working on it, and there's only so long that I can knit before it's like, I don't know if everybody holds, I'm sure everybody holds their yarn different, but I always hold my yarn to where this top part of my finger like rubs against the stitches, and it gets sore really quickly with this linen yarn. So it's something I can only work on for a short period of time, but I don't have very much left. So I am ready to have it done. but we'll see. With the cold weather, it just makes me like not interested in this. The only thing is, I do kind of think that maybe I could style this in cold weather because it could be a layerable piece, but it's just kind of hard to visualize right now because obviously there's no way to try it on. So I have worked on it here and there. I don't know how much I will continue to work on it here and there until maybe we're a little bit closer to warm weather, and we've kind of just began the cold weather, so it might be a bit. And then the next project that I wanted to talk about is kind of brand new. So I talked about this in my last couple of videos actually, that I'm making a cardigan for my mom. It was her birthday present in September to go pick out yarn and basically kind of go through the design process of what she wanted because she's a chronic cardigan wearer. And so I thought, you know, I need to make you a cardigan. You need a high quality cardigan. So she picked out this 100% alpaca yarn. It's in the color champagne. It's from a local company that we got at a local wool fest that we went to, and I'm really loving it. This is the same yarn actually that I have that I'm making my cable knit sweater out of, and so I did kind of encourage her to pick this because I was like, I already know I really like knitting with this, so, but I really do think it was the best option for her too. Now, I made kind of this like big swatch that I wanted her to just kind of see the texture and the look of different stitches, and I did a couple cables, just some variety, and then I also knit with a couple different size needles so that she could see and feel the difference, because my mom is not a knitter, so she doesn't really know what the difference would be between like a 3mm and a 4mm needle. Like that means nothing. So I wanted to actually knit it up to see if she had preferences, and she picked out a couple things, but for a lot of it she was like, just do what you think. Like, I'm not picky. Because I'm drafting this myself, I had her bring over a couple of cardigans that she really likes how they fit, and I just did some basic measurements on the shape and length and size and things and how everything would end up size-wise. And I knit a couple more swatches and I finally started on it. Now, I'm a little nervous because there's a couple things I'm doing in this project that I don't know if I should be, quote unquote, because I've never made a cardigan in this style before. Essentially, it's going to be a longer cardigan because she likes kind of the long drapey cardigan, which is also why I thought alpaca would be a really good yarn for this. But she also doesn't really wear, like, she doesn't button cardigans. She likes the longer ones that just kind of drape. And, you know, she said, I like to kind of wrap them around me, but I never button them. So she said, don't worry about even putting buttons on it. Like, she didn't really want them, she wouldn't use them. I was like, that's fine, because I hate knitting buttonholes, so that works. What I had to decide then was what I do with the actual button band, because you still want that kind of piece of trim there, but I was like, if I don't have to put buttonholes in it, do I really have to worry about kind of like reinforcing it? Because I really wanted to do like the vertical button band. I just think it looks so good. And nothing against when you like pick up stitches and knit out. Like, I think it looks okay if you're just doing like the rib knit that way. I think it's a really great technique for kind of like, I don't want to say beginner knitters, but it's a lot easier than like the double knit button band. So I think that that's a really good option. I have knit a cardigan like that and I don't really like what it looks like. I love the double knit button band. And so I was totally planning on doing that. And then it kind of occurred to me, like, why can't I just do a rib knit on the edge? Like, is there an actual reason why I shouldn't do that? If you know, please tell me. But I've thought about this a lot. And the only thing that I can figure out for why you would need like the double knit button band is because you're probably gonna put buttons on it and you want that reinforcement. But if you're not putting buttons on it, is it okay? Hopefully it is, because I've actually gotten a lot done on this and I really like what it looks like, so I kind of think it's gonna be okay. I am knitting just the front side panel right now. It is gonna be a seamed garment. With alpaca, I kind of just feel like that's the safer way to go because it stretches, but this is what I've gotten so far. It looks kind of lumpy because I took my swatch apart and I was like, oh, I don't need to like steam the yarn, it's fine. But you can definitely tell the yarn that has already been used as part of the swatch, so hopefully it kind of blocks out okay. But this is, you can see the bottom is so much lumpier, but this is what I have. So I start with just the rib knit along the bottom, and then this is what I'm talking about here. For the button band, I just continued to do a rib knit. Am I doing something wrong? I really don't know. So if I am, maybe just don't tell me, because I really don't want to start over. And then I had kind of talked to my mom about what kind of maybe designy details she would want, like possibly a little section of lace, possibly some cables. And she really just said, like, I don't want it to be super busy. I don't want it to be a lot, you know, just something kind of simple. And so all I'm doing is along the button band here is just doing one 4-stitch cable, simple little cable twist. And then I have just one twisted rib stitch, and that's it. And then it just goes into regular stockinette. So just really simple, but something that just adds a little bit of visual interest to it. I'm really liking it so far. I think it's gonna be really cute, and it's really, really soft. I'm really excited for once I finally block it, because I think it'll look a lot better because it's just so lumpy looking right now. The other thing that I'm trying to figure out how to do is I asked her if she wanted pockets, because one of the cardigans she brought, actually both of them had pockets. And I was like, do you want pockets? She was like, actually, yeah, I really like pockets. And so I was like, okay, I can do that. I've never knit pockets before though, so hopefully I know how to. I don't really know. What I'm thinking, and again, I'm just kind of totally making this up, so I might be doing this wrong, but this is my theory. This is my plan. So obviously I'm knitting bottom up. I've actually only got like another inch that I want to knit up before I start this, but I have double pointed needles in the correct size, and I'm planning on just like taking a section out, let's just say it's like this right here, and knitting on my double pointed needles, like a long rectangular section, and then folding it down the back, and then knitting like normal. And I'm hoping that just makes like a pocket. And then obviously I'd have to like seam the sides of it together. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm just gonna knit like a rectangular section out of this, like really long, and then just stuff it inside. In my brain, that works. I think it's gonna work. Yeah, I think it's gonna work. Like I said, I'll have to do some seaming, but I think that's what I'm gonna do. Let me know if that's full of errors. I don't really know. I'm just kind of feeling my way through this, but this is what I have so far, and I really like how it's looking. I'm hoping to actually get the pocket done before we have our family Christmas, because she hasn't seen any of this. So I thought, you know, maybe I bring it to work on, because it's mostly stockinette. It's pretty easy. I don't have any pattern I'm following. I'm just like, I'm counting the rows for my cable knit, and everything else is just repeat. So I might bring it with me so she can kind of see how far I've gotten. I feel like with a pocket on it, it'll start to actually look like a sweater, because to a non-knitter, this is just like a random piece of fabric. Like, what am I looking at? Just nonsense. So that's kind of the next thing. I'm not very far. Also, I have to say, I think that I have crossed to the other side, because for a long time now, I say a long time, like 2 or 3 years, I can't remember exactly, I have used a set of interchangeable knitting needles that I asked for Christmas, and they're okay. They are, I'm gonna be honest, kind of a cheapo set off of Amazon, but they've worked. I've made a lot of stuff with them, and I've liked them decently well. They're not bad. But over the summer, I bought my first set, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, of ChiaoGoo needles. I think that's how I've heard other people say it. I don't really know if that's right, but I bought my first set of those needles, little like sock, 9-inch round sock knitting needles, and oh my goodness, they are so much better. Like, I don't even understand the science that must go into them to make them just fabulous, but so much better. The 2 biggest things that I noticed is that the metal is so sharp and so smooth that there is like absolutely no difficulty in like sliding that needle in and out of stitches. Oh my gosh, it's like gliding. I feel like I'm a machine. Secondly, this seam right here, nothing. I've never had a stitch even slightly get caught. It's perfect. Like, they're just fantastic and amazing, and I don't understand why they're so good, but they are. And so for this sweater, if you can't already tell, I did invest in some ChiaoGoo because I just loved those sock needles so much. And I thought, you know, this is like kind of a sport weight yarn, and I have a lot of sport weight yarn. This is a 3.25 millimeter needle, and I use this a lot. It's the same size, I think, as the needle that I'm using for my linen top. Those are on my interchangeable needles, but I thought, you know, it's a needle size I use a lot, so I didn't feel bad investing in this. But then I did actually put on my Christmas list this year the ChiaoGoo interchangeable knitting needle set. Not the really expensive one, because I was scrolling through Amazon and oh my goodness, it is expensive. But I was able to find a set that mostly just has the smaller sizes. I think it goes from like 2 millimeter up to 8 millimeter. I really don't remember, but it doesn't have like the really chunky sizes. I really barely knit with yarn like that. I don't even know if I own any yarn like that, so I don't feel the need to have any needles that size. I have a couple already that work when I need it, so that's not a big deal. But I was able to find a set that was like $81, I think, and I'm hoping Santa pulls through for me because oh my gosh, these are so nice. I would highly recommend you get what you pay for, honestly. It's an investment, but if I don't get them for Christmas, I'm probably gonna start saving up because these have changed my life. I actually find myself wanting to knit with this project more because these needles are so fluid. They feel so good. So that's my knitting recommendation of the day. I finally get the hype. It makes sense. It checks out. All right, the last project that I want to talk about is possibly the one I'm most excited for because I've made a lot of progress. This is my cable knit sweater, my labor of love. This is gonna be like my crowning knitting achievement. This is, again, a self-drafted pattern. I have got to say, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I started this because it has, I don't want to say gone off the rails, but has been so much more of a time investment than I ever anticipated, but I have gotten a lot done and I'm really excited to share. So just as a refresher, if you have not heard me yap about this sweater before, I'm using 3 different skeins of yarn. I actually have been using this little tray to hold them on because it's a mess otherwise. The weirdest one is this guy. This is a really thin thread, like probably even lighter than lace weight, but it's a cashmere sweater that I thrifted for $2 and I've taken apart to get this yarn out of, and I do have one more other little skein and like a whole sleeve I didn't take apart yet. So once I run out of this, I've got more. The second one is just an undyed Surrey alpaca to give it some extra fluff. And then the other skein is the yarn you've already seen before. This is that same 100% alpaca champagne color that I'm using for my mom's sweater. So I know I loved this and I've gotten pretty far in it. These are 8-ounce skeins, so I have used quite a bit of yarn for it to be this little. And the moment of truth to show you how far I've gotten. So I left a progress marker in it, and this is far and away the most progress that I've made from podcast to podcast. So here's my progress marker. Oh shoot, it's giving away. So here's my progress marker, and I have made this much progress. Now that's minus like a head hole, so that takes a lot out, but it's a lot. I've gotten a lot done. Almost all of this was like a week and a half time. I find that I do not enjoy my knitting projects, like my hobby knitting, if I have another project that like has to be done. So for instance, that baby blanket that I was getting done that I wanted to give to her at the shower, at the baby shower, I was like laser focused on it because even if there was nights that I was like, oh, I don't really feel like knitting that, if I picked up another project, I couldn't even enjoy it because I just like, oh, I need to knit the baby blanket. I shouldn't be working on this. And so I got to a point where I just would force myself to work on it, even if I didn't feel like it, because I'm not going to enjoy any other projects. I just need to get it done. And so I really had barely worked on this, but when I had to order a new skein of yarn and I was waiting on it, it took like a week and a half to get here. And so in that time, I went wild on this sweater. This is all I worked on. And there was like an entire weekend where I didn't have very much to do, and I'm not kidding, for like 5 hours I just sat and knit, and it was so much fun. I felt like I was just let loose, and I'm really loving how it's working out. So if you listen to my last podcast, I talked about how I was getting close to decreasing for the neckline, and my plan originally was that I wanted to make a round shaped neck, and that I was going to cast off on the shoulders and have it be like seamed to kind of give some more structure. If you can't tell, I like a seamed sweater. I didn't do any of that. So something I realized way too far into this project, actually like right when I was getting to the neckline, I realized with a cable knit, it's gonna look a lot better around the neckline if the cables shape around the neckline. And that sounds really weird, but if you go look at like cable knit sweater patterns, a lot of them are set up so that your cables either end at a really natural point in their pattern, or they like shift to kind of shape around the neckline, and it looks really, really good. And I didn't think it would look bad if they just stopped where my collar started, but would it look great? I don't really think so. I went digging through my Pinterest board to try and find some pictures to explain what I meant, and I realized most of the cable sweaters that I had pinned did just end at the neckline, which looks okay, but I really like the ones that integrate the cable pattern into the collar, or like I said, where they end at a good point, because I feel like they demonstrate a lot of thought going into the process of where your cables are going to end up around the neckline, and I think it just makes the entire design look more fluid, and that's what I was kind of trying to emulate. So I decided to totally go rogue because I had no idea what I was doing. I also made the mistake of not writing any of it down, so the sides are not identical, which is a little frustrating, but I think once I add the collar, it'll be a little bit more invisible, and I don't think that it'll ever have an issue with the fit or anything, so I think it'll be okay. But I ended up doing a V-neck, and this is kind of what I came up with, that I just used that like center kind of focus to split apart and then just continue up the sides of the neckline, and honestly, I do think it looks really good. Maybe it's kind of hard to see because the background is more knitting, but there, maybe that's easier to see. And then I took it all the way up the sides and just kind of pushed it into my bobble cable. I like this perspective. It's like my face is framed in a sweater. And then the other thing that I did, so I was planning on, like I said, casting off for the shoulder seam and then seaming it there. Well, I started to realize the other thing that kind of needs to like work out correctly is I want my cable stitches to line up, right? Like I don't want to end on a twist and then it's like totally in the middle of the pattern on the back where I seam it together. That's a mess. I hate how that looks. So I was racking my brain, like, how am I going to figure out exactly how long the back needs to be so that it ends up in the right part, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, why am I thinking so hard? Why am I making this so difficult? So all I did, I wanted the shoulders to be shaped a little bit because I don't like when they're just like rectangular, that you want them to kind of slope just a little bit, and it'll make your armhole fit a lot better too. So this like got a little messy. This is another part I should have wrote down, but essentially when I started to get to where the shoulder seam needed to be, I cast off a couple on the outside edge each round and then knitted about a row or two, you can kind of see, and then I picked up the stitches again so that it creates kind of this angular effect. And it is really hard to see, and I can't even really truly explain what I did because, again, didn't write any of it down. This is the only area that I am a little worried about the fit. I didn't do it in the exact same place on both sides, and it might be really hard to tell. It's like right here and then a little bit further down on this side. So I'm hoping that doesn't affect the fit. But then I just continued. Like, I have like no ugly seam. My cable knit will literally be seamless because the only area that I had to do that on was this like broken seed stitch, texture stitch that I have on the outside, and I don't really think you'll see it. So I feel like I just rambled on and that probably made no sense, but that's kind of how I felt when I was doing this because I, like I said, was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. So At this point, this is about where I'm at. The collar looks really weird and gappy because obviously I've got to go back and like pick up stitches, but I'm really excited. My goal, and this is absolutely not gonna happen, no way, no how. My goal was to have this done for Christmas. Again, I know it's not gonna happen, but I would consider trying to set the goal of getting the body done by Christmas. I honestly think the sleeves will be really easy. I don't know if I'm like a crazy person for thinking that, but I really don't think they take very long. All that I'm planning on doing for the sleeves is just a cable stitch down the top. I don't know what you would even call it. It's just like a diamond shape stitch. I think it's something that'll pair with all the pattern on the sweater itself really nicely. And then the rest of it just doing that same texture stitch, which doesn't take very long at all. So I don't think the sleeves will take nearly as long, because the biggest reason this is taking forever is because I am doing like 6 different cables. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, it's 4 different cables, and then I've got like twisted rib mixed in there. So I've got a lot going on. The sleeves are going to be a lot more simple. So I think once I get to that point, it'll probably go faster. I don't know though. Who can really say? It's probably going to still take me forever to get done, but I would really like to wear it this winter. I also think this is one of those projects that if I put it off and like put it to the side until like next October, that I'll just be totally lost, because again, I'm kind of just flying by the seat of my pants. So at the very least, I need to get to like a really good stopping point, but I would rather just get it done because it's gorgeous and I want to wear it really bad. Well, that is my update with my massive project that feels like it's going to take the rest of my life. But I do actually feel like I've gotten to the point where it's sort of starting to look like a sweater. We're getting there. And that is kind of all that I have to share with my current projects. I've got a couple other rando projects that I worked on like a little bit here and there, but we can save those for the next time when I actually have enough to even show any sort of progress. As far as future knitting plans, I have none. Because if you remember me talking about in the last podcast, I really want to set the goal for myself that I don't want to start any more projects, and I want to get to a point of 0 WIPs, which is wild for me. I'm one of those knitters that likes to have like 37 projects going at once, and so to have the goal of getting them all done is almost a little frightening for me. But I kind of had the realization like last month that it has been a very long time since I've gotten like a big project done, like a sweater. The last one that I completed was at the beginning of this year. So that's kind of a bummer because I knit all the time, and I did a bunch of gift knits. Like I've given away like 4 pairs of socks this year, and just small things like that here and there. I've knit a bunch of winter hats. I'm knitting washcloths like all the time to give away. But as far as big projects that I really have fun knitting and things that I really have fun wearing, it has been a while since I have had a completed one that didn't take a long time because I've got so many things on my plate. So I really do just want to get some things done. Also because WIPs are a mess. Like they're just all over the place, especially because almost every single project I'm working on right now is multiple skeins that just float around and are always in the way, and just, it's nonsense, it's chaos. So I do want to get to a point where I'm maybe more focused on just 1 or 2 things. So the goal is to kind of get the things done that I've been talking about here. The cable knit sweater and my mom's cardigan are top of the list. And then from there, just kind of keep moving forward. I also have a ton of like in stash yarn. So it's something that makes me more ambitious to get things done, but then also makes me want to start more projects because I'm like, oh, I want to use this yarn, so I need to complete all these projects. But then I'm like, or I could just cast it on because I already have the yarn, which is why I have so many projects. So no future knitting plans. I'm just gonna try and get what I have out done, and then we'll go from there, because I'm always feeling inspired to start new projects. So there will be more, but I need to get a lot of these done. In fact, I have so many projects that I'm working on that I am sure that there's probably a dozen that you all don't even know exist because I've never talked about them because I have so many of them. So once I get these done, you'll get to learn about all new projects that just hide in the corner of our spare bedroom. I also wanted to mention, I did not make these stockings. I bought these like, I don't know, a few years ago. It was right after my husband and I got married, and I was like, we need stockings. And if you can tell, they've got this really cute cable knit pattern on them, and that's kind of part of why I got them. And I was like, oh, they're so cute and textured. And it was before I had ever even tried knitting a cable, and so I was like, there's no way I could ever do that. And so I just never tried, and now I don't really feel like I should make stockings when we have these two that are like really nice, that I do still really like. I don't need more, so. But I do kind of feel like a fraud because those are something I definitely could make now, so. I feel like I have to let you know that I didn't. They are store-bought. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here again sometime soon.